Have you ever wondered why no matter what you do, you just seem to not be able to get out of debt? And then that means that you are not able to start building your wealth. In this video, I will talk about how I went from being 50,000 in debt while I was still in my 20s and then turning that around and building savings and investments worth 100,000 all within a span of 1 year. How did I even get into so much debt at such a young age? Well, there's a couple of things that actually went wrong. First, I got into a car accident with the car that I had bought when I started working. This meant that the car that I had paid off for the past 2 to 3 years was totally written off, and I had to buy a new car. This placed me back a few years from the savings that I had made, because now I had to make a new deposit into buying a new car. That was the first wipe off of the money that I had actually saved up, and more debt was coming up because of the new car finance that I had to make. The second thing that happened was, if I look back now, just my own mistakes. I borrowed money to family and basically I never got it back. I got back less than 5% of that money, and I had taken out a loan in order to borrow that money to them, which meant that I had to actually pay off the loan all by myself, which increased my debt even further. During that very same period, I was also relocating to another country, and I still had to take care of the costs for relocation. On top of that, I actually had to manage the differences between cost of living from being in South Africa and being now in Europe. And I was just not ready for the difference in cost of living. The food was more expensive, the rent that I had to pay was more expensive, and so the debt that I had just kept accumulating, and I felt like I was literally drowning in so much debt while I was still in my 20s. But then I decided to just start my journey in clearing out the debt that I had. I wanted to work my way up from being in the red to being at least at a neutral place, being at zero, which is a fresh start to have when you want to start building your wealth. The first thing that I did was to increase the amount of income that I was making compared to the debt and the expenses that I was making per month. I already knew how much I had to repay in order to come back to a level of zero, but it was gonna be very difficult for me to actually repay that amount if I had not started earning another source of income, or if I had not increased my current source of income. I did this by first taking up modeling jobs in South Africa and also relocating to the Netherlands in order to take up a job that would be better paying, but also the currency in Europe is much stronger than the currency in South Africa, which helped me pay down my debt in a much quicker way. Even with the increased level of income that I was earning, I tried to minimize the expenses that I was facing in the Netherlands as much as possible. The second thing that I did was to create a budget. This budget was actually a bit more complicated because I had to factor in debt that was in another currency, being in South African rands, and the income that I was making here in the Netherlands. I found that budgeting helped me so much because I could clearly see what I was earning and also where I was spending it. And it helped me to focus on exactly what I needed to do each month in order to reach the goal of getting to a zero balance for my debt. I started off by paying the highest interest debt first. This was my credit card. Credit cards carry one of the highest interest rates that you will find within all the spaces of personal financing, loans, or short-term money that you can borrow, and it is just not worth it. Once I had repaid all my debt, I was now clear and free to actually start my journey in creating the first 100,000 in savings and in investments in order to build my wealth. Because I had structured my expenses in such a way that I was spending very, very little, I continued with that trend. I did not increase my cost of living. I did not change and move to a bigger apartment or buy another car or do anything else that would increase the expenses that I had. I continued living a very simple life in order to start saving up as much as I can. And you know what? I was able to save up more than 65% of my salary every month, while I was working to train myself and gain more skills in order to climb further up the corporate ladder in order to earn just a bit more so that I can save. And when I look back, this journey of my first 100,000 saved and invested is not complete without a bit of luck. Yes, I invested in stocks, but I was so lucky to have invested in stocks just when the pandemic started. If we all remember, that's when a lot of the stocks were crashing because there was no activity, nobody was getting out of the house, and basically the stock market was just red for a few days. All in all, I bought my stocks when they were very, very low in the market. They were cheap for me to get, and I got a lot of them. I was not worried because all the savings that I had, I did not have a particular use for them at that very moment. I was not worried about needing the money immediately in the next, say, 12 months or 2 years. I could put all the money that I had saved up in these investments that I was making. Having said all that, I recently learned that when it comes to decisions that we make about money, none of us are actually crazy. We are all acting from the experiences that we have, and we all have different circumstances. So all of us will make different decisions when faced with the same opportunities or challenges when it comes to money. So even after I've shared with you my experiences when it comes to building wealth and getting out of debt, you might still be living paycheck to paycheck and facing different circumstances and different challenges than what I faced. Luckily, you can watch this video in order to get actionable tips that you can put into practice today in order to stop living paycheck to paycheck and start building your wealth.